Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, let me go back. All right, you know that we've been talking about an approach to salivary gland tumors, and we have been talking about the importance of the Cinderella cell. Now, some of you, I think, at least two of you have said that you attended my last talk, right? Somik, have you attended?
Yes.
You did, right? You want to just tell everybody about the Cinderella cell? Do you remember it at all? It's been at least 2 weeks,
Yes,
I guess.
Cinderella cells are what you have taught us.
Loudly, I can't hear you. Come on.
Okay. What you have taught us is that Cinderella cells are those myoepithelial cells which you cannot see in a normal histology slides. It is word and clay, and so it becomes very difficult to identify this myoepithelial cell lining of this organization of this glandular structure.
Yeah, that's true. It's very difficult to do that, to identify the myoepithelial cells under normal histology. But what is it about Cinderella that you would be able, that makes the myoepithelial cell be likened to a Cinderella cell? Yes, it's difficult, I know that. But why do we call it a Cinderella? There are many cells that we are unable to identify clearly. But why Cinderella cell, Somik? It's all there. No? The story of Cinderella is on top, Somik, and below you see what the whole issue of Cinderella is. Cinderella was a girl who was very beautiful, but she was unnoticed because she was normally, sort of not dressed in nice clothes, and she was covered in dust and ashes, like many people who are often ignored because they don't seem to have good clothes, etc. But when it came to the prince sending out an invitation to the ball, and she had a fairy godmother, and you see how Cinderella, from this person whom you hardly recognized, became very recognizable because the fairy godmother gave her beautiful clothes. And this is true of myoepithelial cells, which you don't notice. And the myoepithelial cells are not the second layer of cells that you see in this picture on the left, because you don't get myoepithelial cells in what is called the striated duct. This big duct that you're seeing over here is the striated duct. And in the striated duct, the cells that form the second layer, that means the abluminal cells, away from the lumen, they are basal cells. They're not myoepithelial cells. And I think there is a big difference between basal cells and myoepithelial cells. Myoepithelial cells have they contain a contractile protein, and that is SMA, that is smooth muscle actin. Now, if you look very hard, you still are unable to see myoepithelial cells because the myoepithelial cells are surrounding the acini and the intercalated duct. Those of you who see normal salivary gland histology on a regular basis, because anybody who's doing, cut-ups on cases in which the nodes have been dissected, neck nodes have been dissected, will see submandibular salivary gland. So please use that as a way of looking for normal histology. And normal histology it's almost impossible to see the myoepithelial cells around the acini and around the intercalated duct. This thing where my cursor is, and maybe I should get my laser pointer. This little duct over here, which you can hardly see, is the intercalated duct. And the intercalated duct, you can't see the myoepithelial cells. You really have to have extremely thin sections, and you should be looking for it. So you can't see myoepithelial cells, just like Cinderella, who's here in the top left-hand corner scrubbing the floors. She was unnoticed. Okay, that's essentially the case. But when the fairy godmother came and made Cinderella into a beautiful, just dressed her in beautiful clothes, then everybody could recognize her. Now here, this is what happens to myoepithelial cells under conditions of neoplasia, benign or malignant. The myoepithelial cells take on very striking appearances. Here in this case, this is a pleomorphic adenoma. You see the middle picture happens to be the FNAC of a pleomorphic adenoma, and you can see myoepithelial cells with their mitochondroid matrix. It's very difficult to avoid noticing myoepithelial cells when they are in conditions of neoplasia. And that's why I like to think of the myoepithelial cell as the Cinderella cell. Okay, cell that you do not, as Somik said very well, that you cannot or you do not notice it under conditions of neoplasia. It forms the outer layer of cells in normal intercalated ducts and normal acini of the salivary gland. It is not seen in the striated duct. You do see a second layer, but those are basal cells in the striated duct and in the excretory duct. Okay, so that's why we think of the myoepithelial cell. This is not the only reason why I stress the myoepithelial cell, and we'll come to that in a minute. Now, we stopped last time at the ancillary techniques, and there are two ancillary techniques by and large in all of diagnostic histopathology for tumors. One is immunohistochemistry, and the other is a molecular diagnosis. Okay, so now I'll just quickly, before we get to the cases, just take you through the molecular, the immunohistochemistry of expressions of different antigens in salivary gland, in the normal salivary gland, and then we'll see how they get expressed in tumors. Okay, so this is cytokeratin A1, A3. That's the common cytokeratin that is used, and you notice something very interesting. Yes, can anybody tell me about this? What is being seen over here, Gaurav? What do you notice about this cytokeratin expression? Do you do immunohistochemistry in your institute, Gaurav, at Rishikesh? You will be, because you're from AIMS, right? Gaurav, are you there? What's happened to Gaurav? Has he disappeared?
Ma'am, he's muted, ma'am.
Gaurav, will you please unmute yourself?
Yes,
Have you
ma'am.
unmuted yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Gaurav. You do immunohistochemistry, Gaurav?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now you just look at this left-hand side picture, and you tell me what you notice. This is cytokeratin, standard routine cytokeratin. Yes, A1, A3.
Yes.
Anything you want to comment upon? What do you notice here? Here you have the ducts and you have the acini. Come on, tell me, what do you notice?
Acini, yes, ma'am. And the depths have been highlighted over here, ma'am.
What? The ducts are highlighted.
Epithelial, yes, ma'am. Epithelial.
And you think the acini are not epithelial, Gaurav? Are acini epithelial?
Hello?
Yes, Gaurav. I'm asking you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Gaurav can't hear me? All right. He doesn't seem to. Somik, come on.
Hello?
Yes, Somik. Gaurav, I can hear you. You're saying hello, hello, but can you hear us?
So, ma'am, voice is breaking, ma'am.
Voice is breaking. That means your internet is
Yes,
just,
ma'am.
yeah, you
I
may
will
have to
just
join
check,
again. Can you hear me now? Soumik, can you hear me?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
You can. All right. So I don't think he can hear me. Now you tell me. He said that the epithelial cells of the ducts are showing,
Yes, madam.
are expressing cytokeratin. Yes. What about the acini?
Yes, ma'am.
Soumik, you can see the acini?
Yes, madam.
All right. You want to show everybody what is acini? Ask for annotation, Soumik. Can you ask for annotation? You know how to do it? You were doing it, no, a little while ago? No?
No.
No? You know how to ask for annotation? There is a little squiggle on the side of your, all right, I think it's going to take too long. These are acini, and you can see them where my cursor is. Okay, so that's a lobule of the salivary gland in which you have acini, then you have these small ducts over here, which you can just about see, which are picked out very brightly by the cytokeratin. Those are the intercalated ducts, and then this is the big striated duct. The big striated duct is the intralobular duct, and then the many intralobular ducts join up to make interlobular ducts, and finally the big excretory duct. See that, but you will notice something that there are acini which are also epithelial, and there is ductal epithelium, and the ductals are the small ones, the intercalated ducts, where you can just about see my cursor showing them, and then you have this striated duct, and you see the difference in the cytokeratin expression in the acini. In the acini, you see cytokeratin. It's not that you don't see the expression of cytokeratin, but it is extremely faint. You can see the faint expression of cytokeratin, whereas in the luminal portions of the ducts, you get very strong expression of cytokeratin. This is something that we must understand, because if I am looking for something that I believe is a acinic cell differentiation, then cytokeratin is not going to help me very much, because normal acini do not express a good amount of cytokeratin. Of course they do. There is cytokeratin. It's an epithelial structure, so there is cytokeratin. On the other hand, look at the ema. Okay, the ema is next to not expressed at all in the acini, but it is expressed on the luminal aspect of the ducts. Okay, you can see that over here. The luminal aspect of the ducts do express cytokeratin, but the basal cells of the striated duct and certainly the myoepithelial cells have got very little ema, if at all. In fact, they don't have any ema at all. So that's what you have to notice, and this is important because if you don't know what happens under normal circumstances, it's very hard to explain what is going on under conditions of neoplasia. All right, here we have the famous P63. Now, P63 is expressed in myoepithelial cells, yes. So you couldn't see the myoepithelial cells at all under, when you were looking at it in the H&E. But see how many myoepithelial cells now you can see here around the acini. You can see them in some of the smaller ducts, and you can certainly see them in the abluminal cells of the big. This is just the beginning of a striated duct over here, and you can see that's the outer layer of these ducts show it. But it doesn't matter whether these are myoepithelial cells or these are basal cells. They are going to express P63. So P63 is not, and I repeat, not a marker of myoepithelial cells alone. It is a marker of myoepithelial cells as well as basal cells. Do you agree, Soumik? Your third year student knows Soumik?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Where else do we use P63 to show basal cells, Soumik? Or do you have immunohistochemistry in your lab?
In our college, madam, yes, madam, we do have the IHC have started last 3 months.
Only in the last 3 months. All right. So I don't know if Gaurav is able to hear us now. Gaurav, can you hear us? Gaurav? No, he can't hear us. Okay. Akshara?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear?
I can hear you.
All right. So where do we use P63 to look for basal cells, not myoepithelial cells, on a day-to-day basis? Do you know? And we are looking for loss of P63. Yeah? No, Akshara?
We look for myoepithelial cells in breast, ma'am.
We look for myoepithelial cells in breast. Very good, Akshara. Yes, we do. But I'm asking you about basal cells, Akshara. Huh? Yeah, myoepithelial cells express P63, and everybody believes that P63 is a marker of myoepithelial cells. And I am telling you, and I'm emphasizing that they are not only markers. So when I see P63, doesn't mean that it is a myoepithelial cell. Okay? So I'm asking about basal cells, Akshara. What about basal cells? No? All right, let's ask Wrinkle. I can't see you, Wrinkle, but please answer the question. P63.
Ma'am, in prostate.
Prostate. Excellent, Wrinkle. Yes, that's what we do. We use P63 there to see whether basal cells are present or not present in the prostatic acini. Why do we do that, Wrinkle? Why? Why do we use try to find out whether there are myoepithelial cells or no myoepithelial cells? Sorry. Why there are basal or no basal cells in the acini of the prostate? Wrinkle, yes.
Ma'am, for development, to check for development of epithelium or hypertrophy or carcinoma.
Oh, Wrinkle. Huh? Okay. Is Madhu there from Jhansi? Can you hear us? Madhu, or you are unable to join us at all? Okay. So now we're back to Soumik. Soumik?
To differentiate between prostatic carcinoma from benign.
All right. So how does P63 do that? What is it that we're looking for? How do we distinguish?
Ma'am, absence of.
Yes, Soumik?
Bilayer cells present, then we can.
No, sorry. Yes, that was Wrinkle. Yes, Wrinkle.
Absence of P63 means invasion, like absence of basal cells.
P63 means invasion in prostate cancer. See, I'm talking about salivary glands, but I know that you people have got misconceptions about what is P63. Now, what Wrinkle was talking about and what Akshara mentioned is about P63 and the breast. In the breast, we want to know whether something has got a myoepithelial layer intact in the ducts. Okay, and if we see P63, then we assume that epithelium or that proliferative epithelium, which we think is a carcinoma, is still confined to the ducts. But that's not what we're doing in the prostate, Wrinkle. What are we doing in the prostate? Well, what we are doing in the prostate is that if there is a basal layer, and P63, as I've just told you, marks the basal cells as well as myoepithelial cells. So there are no myoepithelial cells in the prostate. I hope everybody gets that. Okay. So what are we looking for? We are looking for some sign that those atypical acini that we are seeing in the prostate, are they truly neoplastic acini? Okay. And neoplastic acini will be devoid of basal cells. So we're looking for basal cells, the presence or absence of basal cells in acini in the prostate. Why? Because if the basal cells are present, then that's a benign acinus. If the basal cells are absent, then that is we believe that is a sign of a carcinoma, an acinar adenocarcinoma. That's not about invasion. It is about, is it a carcinoma or is it not a carcinoma? Myoepithelial cells in the breast is about, is it confined to the ducts or has it gone out of the ducts? Please, this is not something that I should be telling you now in the salivary gland, but I realized that people have misconceptions, and that's why I'm telling you. So P63 is not a marker only of myoepithelial cells. It is a marker of both myoepithelial and basal cells, and this is true in the salivary gland. In other organs like the prostate, where there are no myoepithelial cells, P63 marks basal cells. Okay, in the breast, you have myoepithelial cells, and P63 is used as a marker of myoepithelial cells. So it depends on what it is that you are looking for. A more specific marker of myoepithelial cells in the salivary gland is S100 protein. And now you can see how beautifully the myoepithelial cells on the outside of the acini. You can hardly make out that there is another layer, but the nuclei, that's where you have to look for expression of S100 protein in the nucleus. And the nucleus of these cells has got expression of S100 protein. S100 protein therefore marks myoepithelial cells. It does not mark basal cells in the parotid. And you can see here, there's a big duct here in the top right-hand corner. Can everybody see that big duct in the top right-hand corner? And it has abluminal cells. You can see the two layers over here. But S100 protein has not marked the abluminal cells, and the word abluminal means away from the luminal. So lumen. So this is the second layer of cells, whereas it has marked the myoepithelial cells around the acini, as you can see over here. It's not marked the basal cells of the striated duct. Okay, so now,
Anita,
yes,
Madhu has joined on her cell phone, and Gaurav is also joining from cell phone.
All right, good. Thanks. So now maybe we can have a conversation. Okay. Now myoepithelial cells, again, we talked about the fact that they're called myoepithelial cells because they have a contractile protein. And here is smooth muscle actin, and you can see the myoepithelial cells around the smaller ducts and around the acini, all showing you expression of SMA, that's smooth muscle actin. But note that there is this big duct over here, and very occasionally you will find a myoepithelial cell there. The majority, and those of you who attended my first lecture will know that the myoepithelial cells are concentrated in the acini as well as in the intercalated ducts. There are a few myoepithelial cells in the striated ducts, and this SMA is a nice exposition of that. Similarly for calponin. Okay, calponin is another marker of myogenic differentiation, and you can see you have the same appearance as you see in smooth muscle actin. So if you're wanting to look for myoepithelial cells particularly, then please use something like SMA or calponin or CD10 maybe. P63 is a very convenient marker because it's there in every lab. And but please note that you are not marking just myoepithelial cells. There will be basal cells as well. Similarly about CK56. Okay, CK56 will is expressed essentially in basal cells. Okay, you don't really see it too much in myoepithelial cells. You do occasionally, but in the salivary gland, see how it is marked in the basal cells of the striated duct. 818. What is 818? It's a very low molecular weight cytokeratin, and everything marks with anything that is epithelium will mark with CK818. And if you remember how very poorly the acini were being marked by A183, okay, because A183 is a combination of high and low molecular weight keratins of different sorts, you'll find that in very low molecular weight keratin, see how this the big ducts of course will mark, but all the acini will also mark with this thing. Now here is SOX10. SOX10 is, we often use it, of course, to look for melanocytic or neurogenic differentiation, but it's become quite important in salivary gland histopathology because it marks, yes, basal cells, myoepithelial cells. It is incredibly well seen in acinar cells. Now you see all these big nuclei that you're seeing here. These are not myoepithelial cells. They are round nuclei. Myoepithelial cells have got very delicate oval kind of nuclei. So what are these big round nuclei that are marking with SOX10? And lo and behold, it is actually the acinar cells. So acinar cells themselves, the luminal acinar cells, which are making there's zymogen granules in the serous salivary glands, like serous acini of the parotid and of the submandibular gland. They mark with so these are not myoepithelial. So don't believe that SOX10 marks myoepithelial. Yes, it does. It does mark the myoepithelial cells of the intercalated duct and sometimes the basal cells of the striated duct, but they mark acinar cells as well. SOX10 is a peculiar marker. Now here it is it's a very nice cartoon actually, in which you see you have acini, you have the intercalated duct, the striated duct, and the excretory duct. Okay. Now all of these to the left of the intercalated duct, so here, show you SOX10 positivity, either in the myoepithelial cells or in the luminal cells like the acinar cells. Okay, and you can take a screenshot of this thing. This was very nicely portrayed in this cartoon in modern pathology. And anything to the right of the intercalated duct, okay, the striated duct and the excretory duct do not express SOX10, except the few striated ducts, the closer they are to the intercalated ducts, might show you some SOX10 differentiation. And sometimes basal cells do express SOX10, but it's not very common. Okay, so you can, what do the acini express? It's all written over here. I've already explained all that to you. Okay, and I want you to understand that P63 is expressed both in basal cells as well as in myoepithelial cells. Okay, so that just says the same thing as in the previous, except to tell you that there are other markers that we use besides the ones that were shown in the previous one. And you'll see that we now use CD43, CD117. We use MIB to sometimes look for adenoid cystic carcinomas. DOG1 is expressed in an acidic cell carcinoma, and then you have S100 protein mammoglobin and NTRK3 in mammary analog secretory carcinoma. All right, so these are the additional markers that have now become fashionable to use. And why do I say fashionable? Well, I say fashionable because, frankly, I don't use immunohistochemistry in the routine diagnosis of salivary gland tumors. Okay, a lot of people use it because it's become fashionable to use immunohistochemistry, but you don't need immunohistochemistry, and we'll come to that in a minute. I just showed you this because it's the same thing all over again, except that the tumors are on the y-axis, and here the different markers are on the x-axis. And then I just added two things over here. This is mammary analog secretory carcinoma, and the new classification is just called secretory carcinoma. Yes, expresses soft stem. Okay, and this hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma, now just called clear cell carcinoma, does not. And it's exactly the opposite when you talk about P63. P63 is not expressed in the secretory carcinoma, but it is expressed in the clear cell carcinoma. And it does not say that this is either a basal cell or a myoepithelial cell. And you see here that S100 protein is expressed in the secretory carcinoma. And in fact, it's one of the defining expressions in secretory carcinoma. All right, so just to recapitulate everything that I've said, okay, P63 is present in most myoepithelial cells, in all basal cells. It is also expressed in mucoepidermoid carcinoma. So when you do P63 in a salivary gland tumor and it is positive, it does not mean it's either myoepithelial or basal. It can be expressed in the epidermoid component of a mucoepidermoid carcinomas, because all tumors with squamous differentiation will express P63. That's what we use P63 a lot for, to look for squamous differentiation. Yes, it is expressed in hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma, which we now call just clear cell carcinoma, and in some high-grade tumors. It doesn't matter what the tumor is. The higher the grade, the more often is P63 expressed, because it's just a marker of primitiveness because of the cell cycle. It's a cell cycle protein. Okay, so high-grade tumors will show it. And this just says what I just said before, that it does not automatically suggest myoepithelial differentiation. Everybody and his neighbor uses P63 in breast and all sorts of places, and we just assume that this means myoepithelial differentiation if we're not looking for squamous. And that's not true, okay? Because there are basal cells, and sometimes in very high-grade tumors, you get it. If you want to look for myoepithelial differentiation specifically, then please use a combination of S100 protein, SMA, calponin, and any one of these. Okay, so that's what is important about P63. What about SOX10? All right. I think it's very important to know where SOX10 is never expressed. And it's not expressed in salivary duct carcinoma, in lymphoepithelial carcinoma, in hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma, and in oncocytoma. Okay, where is it expressed? In a variety of tumors: acidic, adenoid cystic, in the secretory carcinoma, epithelial, myoepithelial carcinomas, etc., etc. Okay, and there's one type of mucoepidermoid carcinoma where it is expressed. By and large, you don't get mucoepidermoid carcinomas that express SOX10. Okay. Now we just come quickly to the molecular pathology. Hardly anybody does molecular pathology on salivary gland tumors, but the molecular pathology has become important for us because when you have a translocation, you have a fusion, you may get abnormal expression of a particular gene. And we do, and we use that. We use MIB, for instance, MYB. Okay, adenoid cystic carcinomas, there are MIB fusions or amplifications, and we now have a protein, an antibody to this MIB protein, and we can see it in adenoid cystic carcinomas. Okay, yes, I told you about secretory carcinoma, and there is a fusion. The ETV6, the most common one is ETV6 NTRK3. You can get it. You can get other fusions as well, but since this is common, there is a protein against. There's an antibody against NTRK3 protein, and therefore we use it in our labs. Okay, there is nothing that you can use for pleomorphic adenoma. There's a fingerprint, and that is the PLAG1, either fusions or amplifications. But what is important here is that salivary. Oh yes, of course, hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma has a fusion, but we can't show it on immunohistochemistry. But what we can do is for salivary duct carcinoma. Okay, we often test for HER2 amplifications, not in a diagnostic kind of way. It's for therapy. In other words, it's a predictive one. Yes, they have TP53 mutations, which you can show. Sometimes it helps in diagnosis. And AR. AR is the androgen receptor. And yes, there's amplification of the androgen receptor. And it's usually an and or. It's a one or the other. So if you have HER2 amplification, you won't get AR. If you get AR, you won't get HER2. And I just want you to note the difference between salivary duct carcinoma and carcinoma ex pleomorphic adenoma, right? Just salivary duct carcinomas that occur de novo do not show you the PLAG1 fusions or amplifications. Okay, myoepithelial carcinoma usually shows you the PLAG1 fusions, which means that a myoepithelial carcinoma is related in some way to the pleomorphic adenoma, and so also obviously is a carcinoma ex pleomorphic adenoma. But just de novo salivary duct carcinomas do not show you this PLAG1 amplification. Okay, so sorry. We come now to actual cases. And again, I'm going to tell you that I do not believe in this issue of doing immunohistochemistry just off the cuff like that for salivary gland tumors. Almost all, 99% of salivary gland tumors can be diagnosed without immunohistochemistry. Okay, so this is a recapitulation of what I'd already said in my first lecture, and that is, if you want to approach salivary gland tumors, and there are so many salivary gland tumors, just divide them up into those that have myoepithelial cells and those that have no myoepithelial cells. If you are able to identify myoepithelial cells in the tumor, then you have no problems. You rule out all the tumors on the right-hand side, okay? And you rule in everything, so it's on the left-hand side. So it's very, very important to be able to identify myoepithelial cells. The Cinderella cell is the key to the diagnosis of salivary gland tumors, okay? And so when we go to salivary gland tumor diagnosis, the first question we ask is this a salivary gland neoplasm? And why do we ask this question? Come on, now let me ask Somik. Why should I ask this question? Is this a salivary gland neoplasm? Somik, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Somik, why? Why should I ask this question? No? Were you there at my last talk?
Yes, ma'am.
No. All right, Gaurav,
Yes,
do
ma'am.
you agree that we should ask this question? Is this a salivary gland neoplasm? Gaurav, are you joined from your phone? Can you hear me, Gaurav? No, Gaurav can't hear me. All right. Akshara, yes. Akshara.
And there can be other structures which can be seen in the place of salivary gland,
So what are those? What are the other tumors that can occur in the?
like a lymph node, lymphoma.
Yes, there is a lymph node. So what?
Or a metastasis.
Or a metastasis. Okay. Anything else? So why should we worry about lymph nodes? Huh? Why, Akshara? And why only in the case of salivary glands? Why don't I worry about it in the breast? Why don't I worry about it in the kidney or anywhere else? Why salivary gland? Come on, Akshara. You were right. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Because at the site of salivary gland, there are many lymph nodes. So if there is a lymph node enlargement, that can be mistaken for a salivary gland.
Yes, well, yes, Akshara. See, developmentally, embryologically, the two major salivary glands, that is the submandibular and the parotid gland, are intimately developing along with lymph node structures. That's why, and I'm sure all of you have seen this, if you pay attention, of course, that you can get salivary gland tissue, normal salivary gland tissue within lymph nodes in the region of the parotid, not very commonly in the submandibular gland, but in the parotid it's very common, or you get lymph nodes inside within the parotid gland. Okay, and the submandibular salivary gland, you cannot excise the submandibular salivary gland without removing one or more lymph nodes that are surrounding it. And so whenever anybody is doing a submandibular salivary gland excision, they're going to take out all the lymph nodes from the hyoid triangle. It's impossible to take it out. So there is this very close relationship between the major salivary glands and the lymph nodes. The second thing, and it's too far for anybody to remember because you just listen, but it doesn't actually get into your consciousness, so to speak, that the parotid has got two lobes. They're not two distinct lobes. It's just when the parotid wraps itself around the ascending ramus of the mandible, you will see that there is a deep lobe and a superficial lobe. Now, the deep lobe of the parotid gland forms what, Akshara? What does it do? It forms what boundary of what space? Do you remember? Yes, Madhu? Yeah, Madhu, I can see you well. Yes.
Nasopharyngeal space.
Not nasopharyngeal. Parapharyngeal. The nasopharynx is way up. This is the parapharyngeal space, please. So the deep lobe of the parotid forms the lateral boundary of the parapharyngeal space. Now, this parapharyngeal space is a very interesting space. You can have all kinds of tumors that that you see in the parapharyngeal space. Okay, you get lymph nodes, you get the vagus nerve goes through this parapharyngeal space. There's blood vessels. It's very close to the to the carotid artery. So any of the tumor swellings or maybe neoplastic or non-neoplastic that occur in the parapharyngeal space can present as deep lobe parotid tumor. So the first thing, and this is important when somebody is doing a biopsy like an FNAC, is the first thing that you have to ask is this a salivary gland neoplasm? Because everything that occurs in the salivary gland area is not necessarily coming from the salivary gland. Okay. Then the next question is, does it contain myoepithelial cells? And then comes the next question. If it contains myoepithelial cells, then we just forget about all those tumors that don't have myoepithelial cells. Okay, and I just showed you all these tumors. It cannot be a mucoepidermoid, an acidic cell, a duct carcinoma, adenocarcinoma, secretory carcinoma, hyalinizing tubercular carcinoma, and of course it can't be a Warthin's tumor. A Warthin's tumor has a double layer of cells, but what is the outer layer, Akshara?
The luminal layer is ductal and abdominal layer is basal.
Is basal. Very good. So it doesn't have myoepithelial cells. So if it has myoepithelial cells, then it's going to be a pleomorphic adenoma, adenoid and so on and so forth. All right. Then of course we come to, is it benign or malignant? And as in every case, when you see something that's malignant, although you've asked the question before, is this a salivary gland neoplasm? You ask it again. Could this be primary? Is this primary or is this metastatic? Okay, so you ask the question again if you feel that you haven't answered it very efficiently in the first question that you ask. And then we go to the type. The type is based on morphology. And as I told you, you may need immunophenotyping in very, very narrow a number of cases. And finally, if all else fails, you might have to resort to some molecular test other than immunohistochemistry. All right, so now, one of you is going to have to do this exercise. Okay, Wrinkle, are you there? Wrinkle? Hello, Wrinkle, can you hear me? Wrinkle has... Okay, Shivani, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Come on, Shivani. Yes, you can read the history and you can tell me what you see. And I'm just going to show pictures, huh? Then you tell me whether you can answer the questions. So read this loudly for everybody. Superficial parotidectomy in an adult, right, Wrinkle?
Yes, ma'am.
And just look at the pictures now. Okay. All of you in the audience and everybody, just look at the pictures because you're going to have to answer the questions that we have posed, or each one of us poses when you're looking at something that we are told is a salivary gland swelling. Okay. And I know everybody has in 2 seconds will make the right diagnosis, but let us dissect it. All right. So now you don't even have to tell me. I've given you all the features of notes. Do you agree with this, Shivani?
Yes, ma'am.
Read what we saw.
Variegated morphology, luminal and abluminal differentiation.
Yes. What does that mean?
Ma'am, there is a luminal cells and abluminal cells, which is luminal is near the lumen and away from the lumen, which is a myoepithelial or basal cells. It is myoepithelial.
Then
diffusing of abluminal cells into the stroma and lack of circumscription of the epithelial areas and chondromyxoid stomas.
So you agree with all of this? All right. So now we're going to go back and you're going to tell me where you see all of those, whatever I showed you. Come on. So what are you seeing here? What is striking you over here?
Ma'am, there is a luminal and abluminal cells.
Where are you seeing luminal and abluminal? What is striking you? Literally like a fist in your face. What is this? What is the thing that strikes you when you see this at low power? What luminal and abluminal are you talking about over here?
The cells around the ducts.
Cells around the ducts.
Chondro- there
Now
is a
please ask
chondromyxoid
for- please
stroma.
ask for annotation because I do not see what it is that you are talking about.
Ma'am,
Come
there
on.
is a variegated morphology and
Very
chondromyxoid
good. There's a
stroma.
variegated morphology. What is this variegated morphology? What is variegated morphology now? Come on, Shivani.
Ma'am, there's a different in the different areas.
So what is that morphology? You're seeing it, no? So please tell me. Shivani, Madhu.
Ma'am, there is chondromyxoid stroma.
Fantastic. Yes, there's a chondromyxoid stroma. That's the thing that just hits you straight in the face. What have you got? There's a chondromyxoid stroma. Excellent, Madhu. Now, what is this variegated appearance that Shivani was talking about?
Ma'am, there is a different. There's different appearance of different.
Yes, I understand that, but what are those appearances?
Ma'am, there is a cells
Light.
which arrange in
light and dark.
Light and dark. Okay. Akshara,
On the right side, there are these lobules of basaloid-looking cells.
basaloid looking cells on the right side. Yes. Okay. So,
And
what do you mean just by basaloid looking cells? What are you
and
seeing?
those cells look
The
blue to
basaloid
me,
looking cells are just sitting there. Do they form a pattern? Is there anything that you want to say
They
about it?
and they seem to form lobules with some
Lobules. So now you're calling these lobules, huh?
nest or island.
Nest. My God, Akshara, You don't see that these are nodules which are partly cystic,
not.
and partly solid. So you're seeing areas that are solid. You are seeing areas that are cystic. The cysts are large. The cysts are small. You can see that. So there's microcysts. There are macrocysts. There are solid areas. There's mixochondroid. And yes, there is a basaloid appearance that can be seen quite prominently in this particular section. Now, if you had mentioned the mixochondroid, somebody was saying something. Mixochondroid, that's what hits you right in the face. And Shivani, you didn't see the mixochondroid?
Ma'am, I took mixochondrial stroma.
Mixochondroid stroma. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I said it.
All right, I'm sorry if I didn't hear you. All right, now what about this? Who was answering, Shivani? Yes, so tell me, Shivani. Now what do you see here? Of all of the things that I very, sort of helpfully gave you as the features of note, which feature of note are you seeing here? Or features?
Ma'am, there is a micro and microcystic, which is a cyst lined by the luminal cells, and the cyst is filled with the eosinophilic.
Was it there in the features of note? Or you're just describing now? What features of note that I gave you? You want to go back to the features of note? You have to have some amount of retentive memory. So tell me, what feature of note are you seeing that is hitting you here, straight in the face? All right, so Shivani can't see anything. Madhu?
Ma'am, there is a luminal and abluminal differentiation.
There is luminal and abluminal differentiation. You can see that. You can see that there are lumina. Lumina here, as she described, has got some secretions. But clearly, you've got luminal and you've got abluminal differentiation. Did you see that, Shivani?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the feature of note. Any other feature of note? Come on, Madhu. That's mixochondroid, which we saw. Excellent. Anything else? What else are you seeing here? Because all of them are pointing in one direction. So what else are you seeing?
Myoepithelial cells.
Myoepithelial cells. Yes, myoepithelial. It is pointing in the direction of myoepithelial cells. But to know that there are myoepithelial cells, you have to recognize the features of myoepithelial cells in tumors. So don't tell me myoepithelial cells. So what are those features? Now somebody has mentioned mixochondroid. Very good. That is a feature of myoepithelial cells. There is abluminal differentiation. Very good. It's a feature of myoepithelial cells. Basaloid, as we saw in the previous thing. Variegated appearance. Anything else? And if you don't notice it, that is really, really a sad thing. So what is it? Come on,
abluminal cells are diffusing into the stroma.
Who said that?
Myself.
Sorry, Somik.
Yes, ma'am.
See, you can see that it's not just the abluminal cells, but there are cells that you cannot draw a nice clean line about. You see all these tiny cells, and they're all diffusing out into the stroma. That's a very important characteristic of myoepithelial cells. Okay. Now here, abluminal differentiation, and you see this how these cells are diffusing out, particularly into the mixochondroid stroma. Okay, now what do you see here? Yeah, Shivani. What do you see here?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a mixochondrial stroma.
Excellent.
And the lymphocytic.
Lymphocytes. Now, come on. You just asked for annotation. Can you see the annotation button? It looks like a
There
little.
is also a variegated.
I want to see annotation. Just ask for annotation, please. Do you not see that little squiggle over there?
Yes, ma'am.
Press on it. It doesn't seem to. I don't know why you guys can't. There you are. Come on now. Can you annotate?
No, this is not mine.
No, she hasn't asked for annotation. I can annotate, but I don't want to because she said lymphocytes, and I want to see what she means by lymphocytes. What do you think are lymphocytes? What? You think all these things are lymphocytes? Yes,
No,
Shivani.
ma'am, this is a tumor cells. No,
So
ma'am.
where are the lymphocytes?
No, ma'am. No,
All
sorry.
these are lymphocytes.
There's a no, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Then why did you say lymphocytes?
Ma'am, there's a sorry, ma'am.
Sorry, ma'am. Yes. First things that come out of their mouths. Yes. So what are you seeing? Do you see all these cells over here that are forming sheets
of cells?
Yes, and they're sheets of cells, but they are basaloid. There's hardly any cytoplasm. And what do you see in the middle of all the sheets? You don't see that there are lumina or spaces.
Yes.
Do you see spaces?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
You see a space here? Everybody can see a space here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Here's a space. And there are lots of other spaces. Here's a space.
Hmm.
Now, what's the difference between this space and that space? Yeah, what's the difference? There is a space here. Okay, let me put it in a different color. See this space, which I've outlined with red. This space outlined with red. Compare it with this space, which I have marked with an arrow. Look at it. I'll just come back in a minute. I'll get some water. Yeah, tell me the difference now.
And the space lined in red, it is a stromal space because there are vessels inside.
Excellent.
Hmm.
Yes, it's a stromal space. It looks as if that it's a space, but there are vessels, and there is probably edema or something else that is filling this space. And these other spaces happen to be luminal spaces. Okay, so we've got two kinds of spaces over here, and this is important. You can see it in so many areas that in the middle of this sheet of basaloid-looking cells, small cells with small nuclei. There is hardly any cytoplasm to be seen. You see two kinds of spaces. See, here's a group of spaces which are not stromal spaces. These are stromal spaces. Now that's a very important observation to be made. Okay, right. Now let's erase this thing. Good. Let's go to the next thing. Oops, what is happening here? I'm sorry, it's not moving for some reason. Let me stop the annotation details. Hey, you guys, you have got the annotation on, no? Can you just get rid of the annotation? Somebody asked for annotation because now I can't move the. Kani?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. We are not seeing your annotation, ma'am. Anyway,
No, I got rid of the annotation, but I can't move to the next.
you just press escape and then try to share the screen again.
1 minute. Now let me see if it moves. No, it's not moving.
Or try double clicking.
Oh, no, it's moved. Okay, yeah, it's a good idea to do escape. Okay, so now once again, no, I've gone to the next thing. It's fine.
Okay.
Because you know the cursor becomes annotating and then it doesn't move. I'm still learning how to use this new Cisco WebEx. Okay, so here again you have more or less what we saw in the previous thing. Okay, so all of this is what the features of note. Because I know that when somebody tells you the features of note, you all shake your heads. But when it actually comes to seeing it, then you're not able to do that. Okay, good. So now, Shivani, you are doing this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Answer the question now, Shivani. Shivani, what's the answer to this question? Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
You see the question
No.
up on the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Very good. Now answer it.
Ma'am, this is a pleomorphic adenoma.
Did I ask you what is it? I asked you to answer the question.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. Can you answer the question, Shivani?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, is this?
It is. Okay. Everybody agrees that it is a salivary gland neoplasm? Wrinkle, is it a salivary gland neoplasm? No, wrinkle is not there. Madhu, is this a salivary gland neoplasm?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Akshara?
Yes, ma'am.
Gaurav? Gaurav is also not there. Somik?
Yes, madam.
It is. Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Shivani, why is
Yes,
it a
ma'am.
salivary gland neoplasm?
Ma'am, it's features of all neoplasmic.
Give me an answer.
Ma'am, because myoepithelial cells are in the condition of neoplasm, we saw the abdominal cells.
So that's why it's a salivary gland neoplasm.
Ma'am, we can see the salivary gland first. Then
You
it's
could see the salivary gland. My God.
Ma'am, it's a salivary gland tissue. It's a salivary gland tissue.
How
Because,
do you know that?
ma'am, in the first parotid ectomy.
I said that this is a parotid gland swelling. Does that mean, what did we say? Why do we ask this question, Shivani? What is the answer to why do we ask this question? You didn't understand why we asked this question. Somik, why do we ask this question?
Madam, first to exclude whether it is the primary or it's from any metastasis.
Mhm.
And other thing is that if the involvement of the lymph node, as you see, madam.
Because of the involvement of a lymph node. Okay. Madhu, you want to explain?
Ma'am, because here we can see the normal salivary gland cells like luminal ductal cells and abdominal myoepithelial cells. And there is the myoepithelial cell differentiation quantum modified stroma is there.
Okay. So the answer to this question, is this a salivary gland neoplasm? The answer is yes. But why is it yes? Why is the answer to this question yes? Because it has got all of the features that we would expect in a salivary gland neoplasm and none of the features that we would expect if this came from something that was surrounding the salivary gland. It's not a lymphoma. That's why I was very interested in Shivani saying I can see lymphocytes. So it's not a lymphoma. It is not something that is metastatic to the salivary gland. Yes. So this is very likely. In fact, it is a salivary gland neoplasm. And we need to ask this question because sometimes you may mistake something that is in the deep lobe or close to the deep lobe of the parotid or something for a salivary gland neoplasm. All right. Next. Come on, Shivani. Does this tumor contain myoepithelial cells?
Yes, ma'am.
It does. Okay. How did you know that?
Ma'am, there is a chondromyxoid stroma, which is a feature of myoepithelial cells, and there is a cells which is basaloid appearance.
Okay. Are you looking at the screen now, Shivani? Or are you looking somewhere else?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
No,
So
I'm
all the features,
seeing.
or many of the features of myoepithelial cells are written on the screen, no, Shivani? So you didn't
Yes,
have,
ma'am.
yes, there is this variegated morphology, there is abluminal differentiation, there is diffusing of the abluminal cells, lack of circumscription, and economic tumor, stroma. All of these
Are features of
myoepithelial cells. Okay, so yes, this tumor has myoepithelial cells. Is it benign or malignant?
this is a benign tumor.
It's a benign. Yeah. Why is it benign? Why is it benign?
Ma'am, there is a no tumor cells in the economics in between the stroma.
There is what? Why?
There is no invasion. Though there is no invasion and
There is no invasion. What kind
no
of
necrosis, no mitosis.
Okay.
No.
What do you mean by no invasion, Shivani? Huh? You didn't see that all these cells were invading into the stroma? So what do you mean by no invasion? What has to be invaded? Where do you look for invasion?
In the stroma.
Oh my, okay. So then there is enough invasion into the stroma, no?
Ma'am, there is a perineural and perivascular invasion. We saw
Perineural and perivascular invasion. Okay, where do we normally look for invasion?
in the capsule. If it
has a capsule, then outside.
capsular.
Yes. Otherwise, where do we look for invasion? Into adjacent normal tissues, right? So do we look for, in this case, are we looking for invasion into the stroma of the tumor? If that was the case, then this is definitely showing you invasion, because this is lack of circumscription of the epithelial areas is so typical of myoepithelial cells, which should not be considered as invasion. Okay, it is within this so-called invasion is within the tumor. So how can you say that I didn't see invasion? You didn't have any chance to look for invasion because you didn't see the borders of the tumor. So please, Shivani, this is not the way that you just answer anything, because you're asked a question. All right. So yes, this is a benign mixed tumor, and don't pat yourself on the back, Shivani, and say, "Oh, I made the right diagnosis." You made the right diagnosis by matching pictures. Okay, you didn't do a systematic analysis of why this is a mixed tumor or a pleomorphic adenoma. All right. Good. Now, just to show you how the pleomorphic adenoma is the best example of how immunohistochemistry can be applied to a salivary gland tumor. You do not need immunohistochemistry. Shivani made the diagnosis at low power. Okay, so we don't need immunohistochemistry, but you can see how well immunohistochemistry can be applied to a salivary gland tumor is in here. You can see pan-CK. What do you see in pan-CK, Shivani?
Ma'am,
What has
positivity.
taken up the stain?
Pan-CK is positive for the epithelial components and the ducts.
Shivani, just hear yourself speaking. Epithelial components and the ducts. What do you mean by epithelial components and ducts? Ducts have got epithelial components or not?
No, ma'am.
Come on,
Pan-CK
Shivani.
is
You said pan-CK is positive in epithelial components and ducts. What does that mean? Yeah, Shivani?
ma'am, it's
Epithelial
positive in
components are different from ducts. Yes or no?
ma'am, ducts is lined by the cells.
Thank you. I know that ducts are lined by cells, Shivani. What cells line ducts? Huh?
Luminal and abluminal cells.
What are luminal cells and abluminal cells, please, Shivani?
Ma'am, myoepithelial cells.
And
the ductal.
And the ductal cells. Shivani, you are just making up stuff. All right, come on, Madhu, will you please tell Shivani what she wants to say? What is there in this pan-CK? What has taken up, or is pan-CK is expressed in what? Madhu, are you there? Madhu's also disappeared. Okay. Akshara?
The luminal epithelial cells.
Sorry?
The luminal epithelial cells are highlighted by PCK, ma'am.
I see. That's what Madhu says. All right, Akshara?
Ma'am, I said that.
Oh, you said that. The luminal epithelial cells. All right. You don't see anything else, Akshara? That is taken up pan-CK? What? You see these little cells that are in the myxochondrite stroma? Can you see them, Akshara?
Yes, ma'am, I can see.
So are they positive?
They are positive.
Right. Do you see? So what are they? What are they?
Myoepithelial.
Stromal cells.
Myoepithelial.
Cells. So what is your problem over here? You have got both, and you saw in the previous histology that you had luminal and abluminal cells, right? And you can see that nothing is remaining unstained in this. So both epithelial as well as myoepithelial cells. And what do we mean by epithelial cells? The luminal cells and the myoepithelial cells are all stained by pan-CK. Do you understand that, Akshara?
Yes,
All of you understand that. If anybody has a problem, who do we have still remaining now? There is Shivani, there is Akshara, and there is Soumik. Is there anybody else over there? Winkle has disappeared. Madhu wasn't answering. Madhu, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you're there. Then you didn't answer. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
So both luminal and abluminal cells, in other words, the myoepithelial cells and the epithelial cells, are positive over here, which with pan-CK. But it is exactly the opposite with EMA. What do you see in EMA now over here, Madhu?
There is luminal cells showing positivity.
Luminal cells, yes. So the luminal cells show it, but look at all the myoepithelial cells, and there are so many. You see all these basaloid cells? The basaloid cells have not taken it up, which means that the myoepithelial cells do not express EMA, whereas both epithelial and myoepithelial cells express pan-cytokeratin. It's an important diagnostic consideration. It is best seen in pleomorphic adenoma, in the one tumor in which we don't need any kind of immunohistochemistry. Now, Shivani, you better get your act together. You can't say epithelial cells and ducts, because the epithelial cells are lining ducts. Okay, so Shivani, there's no epithelial cells are separate from the ducts. Okay. Now you'll see the S100 protein. What does the S100 protein show you, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am. There is
What?
luminal cell positivity.
Sorry, what is it showing you, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me.
Ma'am, there is a basal cell positivity.
Basal cell positivity. What is the meaning of basal cell positivity?
Ma'am, in our doctor we have a started that have a basal cell, abluminal cell.
So S100 protein, does it stain basal cells, Madhu? The answer is no, it stains myoepithelial cells. And you can clearly see over here that the luminal cells are negative and the myoepithelial cells around them are positive. Okay, we said that we are dealing with a pleomorphic adenoma, which is a tumor that contains epithelial cells and myoepithelial cells. Okay, the myoepithelial cells are making this chondromyxoid matrix. They are basal or basaloid in nature. They are not basal cells, they are basaloid. What is the meaning of the word basaloid, please, Madhu?
Isn't cells like in basal cell carcinoma? There is
I don't want to know about basal cell carcinoma. I'm talking about salivary gland. What is the meaning of the word basaloid?
basaloid means basal cell.
Basaloid means they are not.
When they present was the
That they resemble basal cells. That is the meaning of the word basaloid. Basal-like. And what do basal cells look like, whether they are in the salivary gland or they are in the skin or anywhere else or in the prostate? What do they look like, please, Madhu?
They are more basophilic.
They're more basophilic.
Basal
cells are more basophilic.
Yeah,
Come on, Akshara. What are basal cells like?
They have scant cytoplasm. They are
Very
ovoid
good.
cells.
A, they have scant cytoplasm. B,
they are small to intermediate sized ovoid cells.
They're not ovoid. They have scant cytoplasm.
Cuboidal
They may
cells.
be,
They
they
are
may be
cuboidal cells like
elongated, they may be cuboidal, they may be anything, but they have scant cytoplasm and a very high nuclear cytoplasmic ratio. That's why they look blue, because they're nearly all nucleus and no cytoplasm. Now, this is not something that I need to tell you at this stage when I'm doing salivary gland tumors, for God's sake. Huh? So these are basaloid cells, and many myoepithelial cells have a basaloid character, okay, because they have very little cytoplasm and they have a very the nucleus, which is bland, but it forms most of that cell because there is so little cytoplasm around it. Okay, so you can see S100 protein expression, you see SOX10 expression, and once again, no SOX10 in the luminal cells. Okay, it's only in the myoepithelial cells around it, and similarly for P63. Okay, so here P63 is marking myoepithelial cells, and we know that it is marking myoepithelial cells because those cells are being marked by S100 protein and also by SOX10. All right, come on, next case. Let us ask Soumik. I can see you over there. Come on, sir. Soumik, read out this. What is it?
This is adult patient sublingual gland.
Sublingual gland. All right. Now I'm just showing you the pictures. Yes. It's just one picture. Okay. And what do you see over here, Soumik? What is the overriding appearance that you are seeing over here? Come on, Jaldi now.
Basaloid cells in a cribriform pattern. They're showing.
Yes, basaloid cells in a cribriform pattern. Okay, very good. All right. Anything else? No? No, you don't see anything else? What? What are you seeing here? Can you see? I marked something on the right-hand side. In the right-hand side picture, and there's more of it over here as well. What are you seeing, Soumik? Yes, I agree that. What? This is a nice, big cribriform structure. Yes. What is the meaning of cribriform, please, Soumik? What's the meaning of cribriform?
Punched out, like
punched out.
Cribriform
means it's like a sieve. You know what's a sieve? Yes, yes. What's a sieve? It's a chine. No, that's what we call a sieve. It's a structure which is a flat plate-like things in which you get holes that are punched out in it, and the holes are usually very regular. Okay, there will be a certain amount of irregularity, but that is cribriform. This is cribriform. But what are these that are in green? Come on, Soumik. All right. Sorry, Soumik. Madhu, what are they?
Yes, ma'am.
The green things. Are they a cribriform?
Ma'am.
Give me the pattern. What is this forming?
Gland formation.
Gland formation. Oh, okay.
Shivani.
Yes.
What is it forming? The green things.
There is acini with secretion.
Acinus with secretion. Okay. Akshara.
They are forming tubules now.
They are tubules. Excellent. They are tubules. And what kind of tubules? They are tubules with a double layer. Can you see that? So they've got a lumen and they have got cells that are surrounding that lumen. Okay. And outside the cells, you see that there is a myxoid matrix. The same matrix that you are seeing inside these cribriform areas. Do you notice that? So inside the lumina, you're seeing secretions. Outside this lumina, as well as within these cribriform spaces, I'm sorry, you are seeing a myxoid matrix. So how did this happen? Akshara, can you explain that?
All of this matrix is laid down by the myoepithelial cells, which also form these cribriform spaces and which also form the abdominal layer of those tubules.
Fantastic. Akshara, you have really hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely correct that you have the myoepithelial cells these are not true lumina. Okay, I don't know if you can see my cursor. 1 minute. Let me go to the cursor. Have I got a cursor? Yes. So can you see these? These look like lumina, but they are not lumina. They're not lumina for the simple reason that you can see stromal cells sitting inside of these. And that's why I was so keen that you people notice that you see true lumina and you see false lumina. And these are false lumina because you can see stromal cells sitting inside of that. And you see so beautifully over here how these false lumina are being produced. If you can see my cursor, or maybe I'll take another color and show you. Look at this. Oh, that's still red. Sorry. Let me supposed to take another color. Yes. Okay. Now you see this green thing. Have you seen that how these myoepithelial cells are secreting this mixoid, and then they're forming. I'll just erase all the stuff and then I'll try it again. Okay. Now let's go to the cursor again. You see this? You see this mixoid material that is being laid down by the myoepithelial cells, and they are wrapping themselves around, and you get this cribriform pattern. Akshara is absolutely right. So what you're seeing here is an adenoid pattern. You've got true tubules and an adenoid pattern, because these are the two patterns that the myoepithelial cells produce. Okay, so this is a classical cribriform pattern or an adenoid cystic pattern. You have myxohyaline cylinders and stroma, sharp outlines to the nests. You can see that. Okay, in a pleomorphic adenoma, the myoepithelial cells showed you one of their patterns, that is diffusing out into the myxochondrite stroma. In an adenoid cystic carcinoma, this does not happen. You have a sharp outline to the nests. You have true tubules, which Akshara rightly identified with secretions present, in this case few, overall basiloid appearance, uniform cells, and inconspicuous mitoses. Okay, so now come on, Somik, is this a salivary gland neoplasm?
Yes,
Answer?
Yes, madam.
Yes, very good.
Yes,
Does it contain myoepithelial cells?
yes,
Does it contain myoepithelial cells,
yes,
Somik?
madam.
Very good. Okay, yes, because I know that this is an adenoid cystic carcinoma, and all adenoid cystic carcinomas have got myoepithelial cells. But apart from that, you can see that there is a myxoid stroma that is being produced by these myoepithelial cells. They're also forming a cribriform appearance, which is the appearance that you see in the majority of adenoid cystic carcinomas. Okay, so is it benign or malignant, Somik?
Adenoid cystic, madam, is it, benign?
Somik, what is ACC?
ACC is adenoid cystic carcinoma.
Carcinoma. So I'm asking you, is it benign or malignant? What do you want to answer? Benign. Yeah?
Benign. As because
Benign. All right. Madhu, he's saying that this is an adenoid cystic carcinoma, and he says it's benign. What do you want to tell him? Madhu?
It is malignant.
It is malignant. Now, why is Madhu telling you it's malignant, Somik, sorry. Why is she telling you it's malignant? Somik, are you there?
Yes, madam.
Why? Why? You know what is the second C? There are two C's over here, right? Adenoid, cystic. What is that C word? Second word? Adenoid, cystic. What?
And then carcinoma.
Carcinoma. Now, carcinoma can be benign, Somik. Carcinoma is benign or malignant, Somik?
Malignant.
Then, so why did you say benign?
It is malignant.
Why are you confused? I want to know what is your confusion. What is your confusion? Come on, Somik, what's your confusion? Because if you have confusion, others have confusion. And I want to get this straight. What?
Madam, as because this, there was mitosis was inconspicuous, there was no necrosis. I can see in this slide.
So I knew that this is the problem. So there are no mitoses, they're uniform cells, they all look monomorphic, and that's why. Yes. Okay, so according to you, we should not use the word carcinoma, Somik? Sorry, I keep calling you Somik. Yeah? So we shouldn't call it the carcinoma? What? Of course it is a carcinoma. So now, Somik, you tell me, when there are no mitoses and there is uniformity, why are we calling this thing a carcinoma? It is a carcinoma. It's an adenoid cystic carcinoma. It is malignant because all adenoid cystic carcinomas are malignant. Carcinoma, we called it a carcinoma. So, Somik, why are we calling this a carcinoma? Huh? All right, Akshara, please tell Somik why we call adenoid cystic carcinoma a carcinoma.
And this is an infiltrative tumor, and we also frequently find perineal invasion.
Because it behaves like a carcinoma. That is the short answer to this, Somik. Everything that behaves like a carcinoma does not necessarily have mitoses and necrosis and this and that. So, Somik, you don't know? Papillary carcinoma of the thyroid is full of mitoses, Somik?
No.
Why do we call it a carcinoma, Somik?
That is also malignant.
Because it's malignant? Why is it malignant?
No,
Why do we call it malignant? Because? Akshara, please explain to him again.
Because it behaves like a carcinoma and it can metastasize and it can infiltrate.
It invades, it metastasizes, it shows perineural invasion, everything. That's why it's a carcinoma. And you should have learned something today, Somik. And what is it that you have learned and others have learned as well? That all carcinomas do not show you pleomorphism, do not show you mitoses, can have a uniform appearance, and still they are carcinomas. Why are they carcinomas, Somik? Why are they carcinomas? Because they behave like carcinomas. Yes, everything that looks like this adenoid cystic carcinoma and is an adenoid cystic carcinoma is malignant. That's why we call it a carcinoma. If there are any questions in the chat box about this, I would be very happy to answer it, because people have gone through. You mean, Somik, for 3, you are in your final year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have just learned something very important today, that you don't make a diagnosis of carcinoma just by looking for pleomorphism, mitoses, and necrosis. Have you understood that? There are things that behave like carcinomas, and therefore they are called carcinomas, despite the fact that they do not have what you learned in your second MBBS. You had benign and malignant, and you had a whole lot of criteria that does not work in the real world. Okay, very good. Now, adenoid cystic carcinoma, I can show you, told you that it may express some other markers, and this is a c-KIT. Okay, where else is c-KIT expressed? Have you heard of c-KIT being expressed in any other tumor, Somik? c-KIT is CD99. Lots of people are answering in the chat box, I can see. Lots. Huh? And there is a very interesting question that somebody has asked about where are the luminal cells. I'll take that question in a minute. Yeah, yes, Somik, have you heard of gastrointestinal stromal tumor?
Gastrointestinal stromal tumor.
Yeah, does it express c-KIT?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Somik, I don't think you're very clear as to whether or not. Can somebody please ask that question that somebody asked about where are the luminal cells? It was an interesting question. Who's
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Manali.
I will.
Yeah, so
In cribriform areas, abdominal cells are inside and luminal cells are outside. So why is that like?
why is that like that? There may be no luminal cells at all. This is just a solid group of myoepithelial cells. Okay, so when you have a solid group, and I showed you that this is a group of myoepithelial cells. The group of myoepithelial cells are secreting their mesochondroid matrix, and then they wrap themselves around this mesochondroid matrix. There is no luminal cell in this group at all, and sometimes there may be, maybe over here, but the myoepithelial cells have outgrown the luminal cells, and they are just making the matrix and wrapping themselves around the matrix. You can see how this is happening in all of these areas. There are no luminal cells here. So every myoepithelial cell does not have to be related to a luminal cell. No, the myoepithelial cells are proliferating on their own. In other words, there is a cell which is differentiating towards myoepithelial cells and is not differentiating towards luminal cells. Whereas this particular, that I showed you down here, there is good differentiation to both luminal and abluminal cells. So there is no rule that says that the outer of the myoepithelial cells must show you luminal and abluminal cells. It's not like that. Here is a beautiful example of an all adenoid carcinomas which have large amounts of myoepithelial cells, and you see that you see the c-kit that is expressed in all of these tumors. Okay, in the tumor cells. And here is SOX10. Okay, now that you know that SOX10 is expressed in myoepithelial cells. And the answer to your question, I don't remember the name of the person who asked the question, Manali. Manali?
Yeah, ma'am. I will tell you just a minute. Deepa Rani.
Deepa Rani.
Deepa, now you just look at this. This is exactly what I was saying. Every single cell in the cribriform areas are expressing SOX10. So there is no luminal differentiation that is seen here at all. Okay, because it's the myoepithelial cells that are proliferating in this particular, in these groups. I hope you got the message. All right. Now, Akshara, come on. Adult patient. Tumor. Yeah, with a parotid tumor. Good. You notice anything about this tumor? What strikes you?
Eosinophilia and vesicular nuclei.
Eosinophilia. You see eosinophilia?
The cells have abundant eosinophilic granular kind of
abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm. And that's what you are talking about, right? This particular thing. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But what is happening over here? What are you seeing here? Eosinophilic cytoplasm?
No, ma'am.
No. What are you seeing here?
There are some clear spaces along
Clear
with
spaces. Okay.
along with
Anybody wants to help her, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the cytoplasm like on the left-hand side and in some smaller areas over here?
Cytoplasm, basophilic.
It is not just basophilic. It is basophilic and granular.
And granular.
So where have you ever seen basophilic and granular cytoplasm? Yes? Anybody? Basophilic and granular cytoplasm.
Serous acini can show basophilic cytoplasm.
What can show?
Serous acini.
Serous acini. Excellent. So the moment you see basophilic granular cytoplasm, and yes, some clear cells, and some are eosinophilic, yes, but even the eosinophilic cells are granular. So what should come to mind?
Acinic.
What? Acinic cell, yes. So this is an acinic cell tumor. You don't require any other histology, immunohistochemistry, nothing to decide. So you've got sheets of cells, okay? They're not forming glands or anything. Very little stroma. Just look at it. The stroma is what? Some little capillary-sized vessels. Yeah. Follicular cells, amphiphilic, granular cytoplasm, no lumina, monomorphic appearance, and there are no mitosis C. So now come on, let's answer the question. Is this a salivary gland neoplasm?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Does it contain myoepithelial cells?
No, ma'am.
No. Excellent. Is it benign or malignant?
It is malignant.
Yeah. Why do you say it's malignant? Because there is no benign tumor that it resembles, right? All acinic cell tumors. There is no benign acinic cell tumor. So once again, somic, there are no mitoses, there is no necrosis, there is nothing to tell you that this is going to be malignant. So how do we know, Akshara, that it is malignant?
Because it behaves like a malignant.
Exactly. Because there are no benign acinic cell tumors. All acinic cell tumors behave in a malignant fashion. They recur, they metastasize to lymph nodes, and therefore they are carcinomas. Excellent. Very good. Now tell me about this, Akshara. You said there are no myoepithelial cells, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So why is SOX10 positive?
SOX10 can highlight the nuclei of acid 9.
Can highlight?
They do highlight.
They do highlight. So I showed you that the acinic cells are all express SOX10. That is one of the expressions that we have to know about. Okay, so it is not myoepithelial cells in this tumor that is expressing SOX10, and you cannot be fooled by this and you say, oh, SOX10 is positive, therefore it contains myoepithelial cells. No, this thing is a constitutive expression of SOX10 in all acini, normal acini as well, and therefore this is not myoepithelial. This is an acinic cell tumor. Are there any questions about that in the chat box, Manali or Sandeep?
No, ma'am, there are no questions.
All right, very good. So that is acinic cell. Okay. Now who's going to take the next one? Shivani? Shivani? Is she there? Shivani disappeared. All right, so we have Madhu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, come on now, Madhu. So we just have 3 diehards. Good.
Adult patient with parotid gland tumor.
Very good.
In first picture, we can see there is a microcystic spaces.
Very good. Very good. There are microcystic spaces. Excellent. So you've seen the microcystic spaces. And where are the spaces? Now, where are the spaces? Are they just sitting by themselves? Are they? You can see that there are sheets of cells. And in these sheets of cells, they are, somebody said slit-like. Priyanka, these are not slit-like. A slit, do you know what is a slit? A slit is a very thin space. These are spaces which are very irregular, and they seem to be forming within these sheets of space of cells. Now you can see that these are cells, and they seem to have some secretions, these spaces, and they are irregular, as if the cells are secreting something and the spaces are being formed. That's the appearance that one is getting, because there are no well-formed tubules or well-formed glands. Do you agree with me, Madhu?
Yes,
There
ma'am.
aren't. It's just spaces that seem to be the result of, like you saw, the adenoid cystic thing, where there is secretion, in that case into the stroma, and there are those spaces that are being formed. Here you're seeing spaces, very irregular spaces. There is no cribriform forming here. These are not punched out areas where each one is so regular, but they seem to be sitting in the sheets of cells. Now, can you describe the cells, please, Madhu?
Ma'am, cells are showing abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm, and there is a round to ovoid nucleus with
Very
prominent nuclei.
Very good. So they are pink. And do you notice any cell borders or anything? No. The cell
No,
borders are
there is
very
no distinct cell
indistinct. So it's almost like a syncytium. The cell borders are very indistinct, and you see these secretions that are sitting. Some of them are blue, some of them are inspaciated in pink, but they're sitting in these spaces that have seemed to emerge from the sheet of cells. Oh, that's very good. You look at it again, same thing. Can you see? And here you can see some little bluish kind of secretions that are present. Yeah, and here too. And you describe these cells beautifully. They have eosinophilic cytoplasm. They have a round nucleus, and some of the nuclei have prominent nuclei, but nice vesicular nuclei. Excellent. That's very good. I think it was Madhu. Yes. Okay, so I said exactly here. Sheets of cells are punctuated by spaces containing amphiphilic, some pink, some blue, some light gray or whatever. Mild anisocytosis in cells whose cytoplasmic borders are indistinct. Now, nuclear pleomorphism is very mild. There are no mitosis, no matrix. Agreed? Yes, Madhu? So now, is this a salivary gland neoplasm, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Does it contain myoepithelial cells?
No, ma'am.
No. Everybody agrees? Akshara, you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Somik, you agree?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why? Why do you think that there are no myoepithelial cells? There are spaces, Somik. So why is this not an adenoid carcinoma? Somik?
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody called Manisha says possibly yes. So Manisha thinks that there may be myoepithelial cells. What do you think, Somik? Just because your two colleagues said no, you make up your mind. Are there myoepithelial cells? So Somik, can you tell me what are the features that we should look for to diagnose myoepithelial cells on histology? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have seen myoepithelial cells. Come on, Somik. Tell me one criterion at least.
Myoepithelial will get mixed stroma. Myoepithelial will look at like
mixoid stroma. Okay, mixoid stroma. Matrix. Very good, Somik. Matrix to be produced. Anything else?
Cells look like.
What is the cellular characteristic of myoepithelial cells? You've seen so many myoepithelial cells now. So what are the cellular characteristics? Just name any cellular characteristic, Baba. You didn't. What about basaloid? Yes.
Basaloid or plasmacytoid
Yes,
hyaline
basaloid.
cells or stellate looking or spindle.
Stellate looking? Somik?
No.
Those are myofibroblasts.
Spindle cell.
So they may be basaloid, they may be short oval, they may be plasmacytoid, they may be spindle. But did we ever see a myoepithelial cell that has abundant pink cytoplasm? Have you seen it so far?
No.
We saw some myoepithelial tumors, didn't we? Myoepithelial containing tumors. Yes, have you seen them so far, Somik?
No.
We haven't seen any myoepithelial containing tumors so far today?
No.
No.
We have seen.
Oh, we have seen. Very good. So name them. What have we seen?
Pleomorphic adenoma, adenoid cystic
Very good.
carcinoma.
Pleomorphic adenoma. Which other one did we see? Huh? Which other tumor?
No,
Only one we saw,
adenoid
pleomorphic
cystic-
adenoma? All right, Akshara, please help
adenoid
him.
cystic-
Adenoid
Adenoid
cystic
cystic-
carcinoma. Yes, very good. So we saw two. No, so at least tell me what the myoepithelial cells look like in pleomorphic adenoma and adenoid cystic carcinoma. Batao to say.
In adenoid cystic, they are looking basaloid looking cells.
Very good. And in pleomorphic adenoma?
In pleomorphic adenoma, what we have seen is spindle like cells.
No, we didn't see spindle cells at all. We saw some basaloid cells. We saw some cells with oval or small nuclei, hardly any cytoplasm. Yes, that's what we saw. There are other avatars of myoepithelial cells, some that are very spindly, some that are plasmacytoid. We haven't seen those. So now answer this question. What are we seeing? Look at the amount of cytoplasm. Did we not say that? In cells whose cytoplasmic borders are indistinct, we see lots of cytoplasm. So it cannot be myoepithelial cells. Somik? Yeah, so somebody called Manisha said yes, probably, or possibly no. That these cannot be myoepithelial cells. Okay, the answer is no. Very good, Akshara and Madhu. Very good. So now, tell me, who was answering, Madhu or Akshara? Who was, I don't remember. Who was answering the questions? Akshara? Was it you or Madhu? Madhu, I think.
It was Madhu.
Is it benign or malignant?
Malignant.
Malignant. All right. Why?
Because it behaves like malignant.
Because it behaves like malignant. What's the diagnosis? You're saying behaves like malignant, Ariva?
Sorry, ma'am. There is I think it is a secretory carcinoma.
You think it's a secretory carcinoma, but why?
Ma'am,
The moment you say, 1 minute, the moment you say that there are no myoepithelial cells, what's the list of tumors that you have to think about?
And there is also microcystic spaces and
why do we ask the question, are there myoepithelial cells, Madhu?
then there is no myoepithelial cell and
Then what? Then you have a list of tumors which do not contain myoepithelial cells. Do you know that list of tumors, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what is it?
And there is budding tumor,
What is tumor? Then
mucoepidermoid, and
mucoepidermoid, then
arsenic, then salivary duct carcinoma,
Salivary duct carcinoma, then
adenocarcinoma, then secretory carcinoma, then highlights clear cell carcinoma.
very good. Now you have got these 6 or 7 tumors to choose from, right? Is it a Wharton tumor?
No, ma'am.
No. Is it an arsenic cell tumor?
No, ma'am.
No. So is it a salivary duct carcinoma?
No, ma'am.
Is it a salivary duct carcinoma?
No, ma'am.
No. All right. So is it a mucoepidermoid tumor?
No, ma'am.
No. So what is left?
And secretory.
Secretory carcinoma and clear cell carcinoma, right? And it's not clear cell, so it's secretory. So see, it is so simple. You do not require immunohistochemistry or anything. You just know, are there myoepithelial cells or not? If there are myoepithelial cells, then it rules out all the ones that we just talked about. Then it goes to pleomorphic adenoma, adenoid cystic carcinoma, myoepithelioma, polymorphous low-grade carcinoma, and so on. Okay. So now this is not benign, because the only benign tumor that doesn't have myoepithelial cells is what? The Wharton tumor. Excellent. So it has to be malignant. Okay. And then there is no benign tumor that has this morphology. Okay, then you go to find out what kind of tumor it is, and I told you it's a secretory carcinoma. And here is the immunohistochemistry, which you do not require. It is CK and EMA positive. Okay, if it was only CK positive and not EMA positive, then we'd have to think, is this some funny myoepithelial tumor or not? But it is both CK and EMA positive. That happens in all luminal type epithelial cells. So this tumor is showing differentiation only towards luminal type cells. And then, of course, it has S100 protein. Yeah. And it's a secretory carcinoma. And we said that secretory carcinomas also express SOX10. Okay, so here is SOX10 being expressed by the secretory carcinoma. And if you want to go and do, which we did in our lab, just for the purposes of demonstration, you can demonstrate that there is an ETV6 NTRK3 translocation. Okay, so this is a secretory carcinoma. Now, was it difficult to make that diagnosis? The answer is no. The moment you say that there are no myoepithelial cells in the tumor. All right, now come on, Akshara.
Adult male, long-standing. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Adult male, long-standing tumor in the parotid gland.
Okay. So what do you see over here?
I'm seeing a poorly circumscribed lesion, which
yes, excellent. Yes, it's a very poorly circumscribed lesion. It seems to be
which shows some fibrous.
It's getting into the adipose tissue, no?
Yes,
you can see that there's adipose tissue on the right, and there's a salivary gland, the parotid gland on the top. Okay, and you see some cells that are there in trabeculae and cords and forming ill-formed glands, right? And here you are. All right. So you know what it looks like. So a very quick description. What would you say?
It looks like ductal carcinoma.
It looks like ductal carcinoma. All right. Do you think that there are myoepithelial cells?
No, ma'am, I do not see.
You do not see. All right. So it's infiltrative margin, sclerotic stroma. There was cometonecrosis. So yes, it is a salivary gland neoplasm. Does it contain myoepithelial cells? The answer is no. See, you guys are still matching pictures in your head. You are not going through the motions. Okay. Is it benign or malignant? And what is it? It's malignant, right? It is a duct carcinoma. Somik, you agree that this is a duct carcinoma?
Yes, sir. Yes,
ma'am. All right. Somik agrees with everybody. All right. So this is a salivary duct carcinoma, and immunohistochemistry can be very deceptive because it also expresses GATA if you bother to do it. Which I mean, I've stopped doing all of this. For the purposes of therapy, you can do a HER2 and you can do an AR, because if it is expressed, then this can be used as a target for these tumors. And here, this tumor expressed androgen receptor. That is what AR is. All right. Now, Somik, you want to try this?
Yes,
come on. What's written over here?
Tonsillolingual mass in an adult.
So what does that mean? Where is this mass? What is the meaning of tonsillolingual? Somik, where do you think it would be? Imagine it in your mouth, because lingual means what? Tongue, right? So where would it be?
Tongue, tonsil.
Which part of the tongue are they talking about, Somik? Posterior tongue. Excellent. So it is sitting in the groove between the tonsil and the posterior part of the tongue. Okay. Now, what do you see at low power now? Do you get some impression? I don't want you to tell me about the cells or anything. What should you be doing at low power? When you ever look at low power, what kind of impression should you get, Somik?
The pattern or the architecture?
Yes, the architecture. Very good. So, in other words, it's a pattern. Now tell me, what is the pattern that you're seeing? You know it's a tumor, right?
It's a tumor.
Oh, yeah. You see some pink and you see some blue. And the bluish or grayish is the stroma and the pink stuff is the tumor. So do you see a pattern? Or you don't see a pattern? There is no pattern.
No, there is a pattern.
There is a pattern. Excellent. So what is that pattern?
Lobules.
It's not lobules. Lobules do not look like this. Somik, you have to go back to basics and find out what is a lobule. I cannot do it now. Yeah, come on. Shivani, you suddenly appeared. What is the pattern? Are you there, Shivani? I saw her appearing. What is the pattern? Huh? People are saying it in the chat box. I just saw Sangeeta, I saw Priyanka. They're all saying things in the chat box. You do not see trabeculae? Huh? You know what is a trabeculum? What is a trabeculum, Somik? What is it? Huh? A trabeculum is a beam. It's either a beam or a wall. Okay. So, you know what is a beam? What's a beam, Somik? You have a beam in your room where you're sitting just now? All right, Akshara, will you explain what is a beam? It's an architectural term, no? That is, haven't you seen that when they're building buildings, they put up the beams and then the walls come up where supported by these beams, and that's what you're seeing. You are seeing interconnected beams or trabeculae over here. This is a trabecular pattern, and you can see that. Look at this. Okay, you see this trabecular pattern, like how you see in a hepatocellular carcinoma. That is a trabecular pattern, and in between these trabeculae, what are you seeing? What are you seeing, Somik?
You can see this.
You see the tuberculi or you don't see the tuberculi? Oh, you do? Okay.
Tuberculi, and in between these tumor cells are present.
The tuberculi
Tumor
are
cells are
formed
present
by
around
tumor
hyalinized
cells,
stroma.
Somik. And in between, what do you have? What is this stuff that is pink?
These are this hyalinized stroma.
Hyalinized stroma. And what are the cells like, Somik? Describe the cells. Nothing strikes you about the cells, Somik.
These are clear looking cells.
Ah, they're clear. Very
Having
good.
clear cytoplasm.
Very good. They're clear. And
Having clear cytoplasm. And,
did you see the secretory carcinoma, Somik? You saw? We saw a secretory carcinoma, no, a little while ago.
yes,
Yeah. And what did we say about the cells? That the cytoplasmic borders were indistinct. Now, in this case, can you tell me, Somik, what are the cytoplasmic borders like? They are?
These borders are distinct, having distinct borders.
Exactly. They are box-like. You can see every border of these cells. And they are clear cells. And what about the nuclei? What do you want to say about the nuclei, Somik? Nothing.
No, eccentric place nucleus.
Huh?
No, eccentric place nucleus.
Eccentric. Why are they eccentric? What is eccentric about them? Some Anvesha also saw them as eccentric. I don't see them eccentric. It depends on how they are cut. The nuclei are sitting right there, quite merrily in the middle of the cytoplasm. They are irregular, and there is a good deal of anisonucleosis. Some are small, some are large, and they are irregular. So there is some degree of isonucleosis. Maybe somebody might want to say mild pleomorphism, of the nuclei. But then it's clear they are in tuberculi and they have a hyalinized stroma. So come on, how do we go about this now? Huh? We clear this thing. Can you see that? Yes. And there are some cells which are not just, they have an eosinophilic cytoplasm. All of them are not clear. Yeah. And some of them seem to have some kind of material in the cytoplasm. So first of all, it's a subepithelial tumor. It has poorly defined superficial margin. It was merging with the epithelium. Hyaline matrix dominates the histology. Clear cells in cords, tuberculi, and sheets. Fairly well defined outlines to the clear cell groups, and very defined, clear cells like box-like and isonucleosis. And there are no lumina here. So now come on. Is this a salivary gland neoplasm?
This one.
Yes. He's saying it very indefinitely. Does it contain myoepithelial cells? Clear cells now?
No.
Why? Why? Priyanka Chandak says yes. She says yes, because myoepithelial cells can be very clear. Sanchita Paul says no. So what do you say, Somik?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. And the answer is possibly. It may or may not be. How do I know whether these are truly myoepithelial cells or not? Because myoepithelial cells can be very clear. So in myoepithelial cells, you get basaloid, you get small, with very indistinct cytoplasm and small nuclei. You get plasmacytoid, you get spindly, you get oval, and you get clear. So now tell me why these cannot be myoepithelial cells. And myoepithelial cells produce matrix. They produce all kinds of matrix. They produce hyaline matrix, which is basement membrane-like matrix, because the normal function of myoepithelial cells is to produce a basement membrane. So basement membrane matrix, myxoid, chondroid, osteoid, myxochondroid. So they can produce any matrix. So why are you saying no? So the answer is, I don't know. Possibly these are myoepithelial cells. So now this is one place where we need to do some think differently. And the question is it benign or malignant now? So what do you think? That's the next question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if these were myoepithelial cells, would you call them benign or would you call it malignant? And if there are not myoepithelial cells, what would you say?
If not myoepithelial cells, then we will consider for malignant.
If they were myoepithelial cells, you would say what? If they were not myoepithelial cells, you would say it is malignant. Excellent. Because the only thing that is benign and is not of myoepithelial origin is the Morthin's tumor. No, Somik, and this is not a Morthin's tumor. So if these are not myoepithelial cells, then it would have to be malignant. If they are myoepithelial cells, then what? Is it benign or malignant? And the answer is, there is too much anisonucleosis for this to be just benign, but possibly we'll have to see the borders of this tumor to see whether it is infiltrative or not. And it did look infiltrative. So even if these are myoepithelial cells, this is going to be a myoepithelial carcinoma. Yes, Anvesha says that we should look at the margins, which is absolutely right. So either way, this is unlikely to be benign. Okay? So probably not benign. All of this you can make out by just doing histology. Okay? Now, so what is the tentative diagnosis? We have to reach some tentative diagnosis, and the tentative diagnosis is a low-grade salivary gland neoplasm that requires immunohistochemistry, because I don't know whether this is myoepithelial or it is not myoepithelial. I have a good guess, and my good guess is that this is a hyalinizing tubercular carcinoma, because it is tubercular and it is hyalinizing. Okay, but I could be wrong, and therefore I better do some immunohistochemistry. Okay, so here you are. Somik, what is it telling you? There's pan-CK, and there is EMA. So is this myoepithelial or is it not? Just two simple immunostates, pan-CK and EMA. Now, come on, Somik. Priyadarshini said no, that this is not myoepithelial. What do you think, Somik?
I'm not sure.
You can make out straight away simply on these two states. Come on. Akshara, you want to help him?
EMA is negative in myoepithelial cells. So these are
exactly. EMA is negative in myoepithelial cells. Okay. So it has to be an extremely odd myoepithelial tumor to express EMA. So with two simple states, and you saw it. You saw this CK and EMA in the clear cell carcinoma. So here we have this. So it's like it's not a myoepithelial cell tumor because there's EMA positive. Okay. Now, Somik, we said not EMA positive, but we did P63. And P63 is all over the place. So now we want to change our minds. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to change your mind. Okay. You want to say it is myoepithelial. Now what about SMA? You know what is myoepithelial, Somik? Why do we call them myoepithelial? Why? Why? Somik, there is the word myoepithelial. Why is it called myoepithelial, Somik? All right, Madhu, please help him.
Ma'am, because these cells have a contractile property, like muscle.
Yes, they are epithelial cells which have a contractile property. Why? Because they contain contractile elements. So these are epithelial cells, but they are the outer layer of the ducts, and they contain actin. And here I am showing you, Somik, that there is P63, but there is no SMA. So what does that tell you, Somik? You wanted to change your mind because you saw P63, but what did we learn about P63?
Maybe positive in vessel cells also.
Yeah, and in many other things. So it doesn't have to be myoepithelial. And here you have the SMA, and the SMA is dead negative. Okay, you can see it in the cells. These are the cells, and the SMA negative. This is the stroma. So these are not myoepithelial cells. You didn't have to change your mind. There's no S100 protein, which is also a marker of myoepithelial cells, and there is no calponin. Okay, what is calponin being expressed in, Somik? You see some brown stuff? Yeah. So what is it being expressed in? Can you think what this calponin is being expressed in? Okay, Akshana, will you help him?
These can be blood vessels.
They are blood vessels. This is the smooth muscle of the blood vessels. So calponin is one of the markers that we use to determine whether or not there is smooth muscle in a variety of different conditions. And here you have calponin. So this is, I mean, it has worked. The stain has worked because the internal control is there and the cells are negative. Okay. Now this tumor also, by the way, contains mucin, and you can see it. Not all the cells contain it, and therefore people could mistake it for, what can you mistake it for? A mucoepidermoid tumor. Okay, but it does not have intermediate cells, and it doesn't show you squamous differentiation. It is a very close mimic of a mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Okay? So then you have differential diagnoses, myoepithelial carcinoma. No, but we have now come down to an understanding that it is none of these tumors. The immunohistochemistry does not support a diagnosis of a myoepithelial carcinoma or epithelial myoepithelial carcinoma. Metastatic carcinoma to a mucosal site would be very unusual because you have to think metastasis, and therefore the only differential diagnosis that remains is a mucoepidermoid carcinoma, except that there is excessive hyalinization and there's no squamous differentiation, and there are no intermediate cells. Okay, they were all one type of clear cell. Right? If you want to know what a clear cell mucoepidermoid carcinoma looks like, this is what a clear cell mucoepidermoid carcinoma can look like. Therefore, I tell you that you may have some difficulty sometimes if there is hyalinization in a clear cell mucoepidermoid carcinoma, that you might mistake it for a hyalinizing trabecular carcinoma. But this is what is important. Okay, in a clear cell mucoepidermoid carcinoma, any mucoepidermoid carcinoma, nobody should make a diagnosis unless you see epidermoid and intermediate cells. There they are. And these are the intermediate cells, and you should see them. And if you're not seeing them, please, even if there's mucin in it, be very, sort of cautious about calling something a mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Remember that P63 can be expressed in mucoepidermoid carcinomas. So don't jump to the conclusion that, P63 is expressed and therefore this is a hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma. No, mucoepidermoid carcinomas can also express P63. Of course, both will be CK and EMA positive. So it can be a difficult diagnosis, but the hyalinization is often the way that you make the diagnosis towards hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma, and you must see intermediate cells as well as epidermoid areas in a mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Okay? So this is how you get your mucin, and it was not too different from what you saw in a hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma. This case, anyway, we did the RT-PCR, and it is very definitely a clear cell carcinoma of the this was in the oral cavity, and you can see that CREB, the EWS CREB translocation that is being found in this tumor. Okay, so this case is a hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma. And you must know something else about this, that you get the EWS ATF1 gene or the CREB, whichever one. And this is the same fusion that is seen in clear cell sarcoma, that is melanoma of the soft parts. Clear cell sarcoma used to be called tendon sheets, but it's clear cell sarcoma of the soft parts. Clear cell sarcoma like tumor of the GI tract, in angiomatoid fibrous histiocytoma, and myoepithelial tumors of the soft tissues. So please, just looking at at the translocation, unless you know what the tumor looks like, I'm not talking about salivary gland tumors in general, but any of these tumors, you should not make a diagnosis based only on the translocation, on the molecular pathology of these tumors. Okay, so I just want to go back to this. What is the clinical impact of an inaccurate histology subtyping of salivary gland tumors? I think, let me tell you, this is just to revise what I told you in the first talk. There is little impact of histology on surgical management. Okay, grade may dictate prophylactic treatment to the N0 neck. Grade, stage, and resection statement determine the prognosis, and the histologic subtype often correlates with grade and thereby correlates with prognosis. But otherwise, histology has very little impact on surgical management. Okay, and this is not just what I'm saying, but it's also there in the data set for the histopathology of reporting of salivary gland neoplasms. And they say histological type is less important than stage on multivariate analysis, and grading is also less important than stage. Okay, so what is the importance then of the subtype? Why should we bother to subtype? It is because several subtypes have unique clinical behaviors. The adenoid cystic carcinoma has a propensity for lymphatic lung metastasis. Duct carcinoma has a very poor prognosis. The mixed tumor, that is our pleomorphic adenoma, if it's not dealt with adequately at the first time, will have recurrences again and again, and over a long period of time. If it has been either it has recurred or it has remained in the body for a very long period of time, it may convert to a duct carcinoma. And therefore, the subtype is a guide to follow up. Okay, and molecular pathology may have an impact on targeted therapy. And I've already told you about the molecular. So, in summary, everything in the salivary region is not of salivary gland origin. You must remember that. It's very important to identify the presence of a myoepithelial component because it rules out all of these things: mucoepidermoid, acinic, other adenocarcinomas, etc. And mucicarmine is a useful stain in solid tumors, provided you don't jump to the conclusion that anything that has mucicarmine in it must be a mucoepidermoid tumor, which I just showed you, a hyalinizing trabecular tumor that has mucicarmine. I'm going to emphasize this again. Immunohistochemistry is of limited value in salivary tumor diagnosis, except for proving the presence of myoepithelial stroke basal cells in a tumor. Please understand that we did not need immunohistochemistry, except in the last case where we had a pretty good idea that it was going to be a clear cell hyalinizing tumor, but we needed to prove it. Okay. Now, what is the take-home message? There are numerous tumors, but limited options for treatment. The treatment of salivary gland tumors is based on site, stage, and whether it is resectable or not. It is not based on the type of the tumor. I know that all of you think, why should we bother then? And I told you the reason why we should bother, because many of these tumors have a peculiar behavior. Then pathological information on stage and adequacy of resection is therefore more important than an exact tumor classification. If you cannot classify it, you should try to classify it. And as I told you, 9 times out of 10, maybe 99% of the time, you will be able to classify it. Okay? Molecular pathology may become important in the future, not for diagnosis, but maybe for targeted therapy, and we should never forget the Cinderella cell. Okay, so I think I will end it here now. I have a slide seminar coming up on the 2nd, and I think that we will use that slide seminar time to go through once again this whole thing of salivary gland tumors. All of you have received that, but I'll send it around again. I think there are some 10 cases of a salivary gland tumor where we will apply the approach to salivary gland tumor, and you will see other kinds of salivary gland tumors that we haven't discussed today. All right, so I think I will stop sharing now, and I will take any questions if there are anybody, if there are still people who are awake. And so, Manali, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Ma'am, there are a few questions.
Yes, okay.
Ma'am, why are the cells in secretory carcinoma SNL positive if these are luminal cells?
Why are they? Yeah, now I think that's a question that is not a very difficult question to answer. Just like P63 is not expressed only in you could ask me the question, why is P63 expressed in basal cells and not only in myoepithelial cells? S100 protein is not specific for myoepithelial cells. S100 protein is present in many tumors, not only salivary gland but others, in luminal cells. Okay, so that's just a characteristic of this particular tumor, that it has a lot of S100 protein. And by now you should have understood that there is no specificity for a particular type of cell for a particular expression of any marker. Take SOX10, and you have seen that. You've seen where P63 is expressed. So it's just a characteristic of this tumor that S100 protein is expressed. There are other tumors, and you may find that spottily S100 protein is being expressed, but that doesn't mean that it is a myoepithelial cell. You have to use it. Every immunohistochemistry has to be evaluated in a context. Okay, so that's my answer to this question.
Ma'am, next question is, do salivary carcinoma respond to herceptin if HER2 is amplified, just as in breast cancer?
Yes, it does. That's the whole purpose of this thing. Wherever HER2 is amplified, it's a very good target, whether it's in breast, ovarian, in stomach, in esophagus, wherever. So it's a good target for herceptin. Yes.
Ma'am, last question is hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma is a DD with clear cell underlying carcinoma?
Yes, it could be if it is happens to be in the jaw, but it's very unlikely that a hyalinizing clear cell carcinoma will occur in the jaw. And I don't know that we know what a clear cell hyalinizing carcinoma is, although the clear cell odontogenic tumor does not have the EWS-R1 translocation. Okay, so yes, it is. But I think if you do the mucin and you do the immunohistochemistry, you'd probably come to a reasonable conclusion on this case. Yes, it is.
That's all, ma'am, for questions.
That's all. Oh, very good. So I'm very happy that there was a lot of participation of the audience. I feel sorry that we lost some of our students. I think there were internet problems and other problems. Gaurav and I think Shivani and Wrinkle, some of the other were not able to join. But the three of you, I really want to commend you for being the face of all the students who joined, because their problems were clarified through your, whatever answers that you gave and the way that you approached the problem. Clarified, I think, a lot of problems for the rest of the audience. So thank you very much, three of you, Akshara and Madhu and Soumik. I think all of you have to get a little bit more familiar, Soumik in particular. Okay, Soumik, please get familiar with some patterns and things of this sort, because that's what histology is all about. Okay, so thank you, and thank you to Sandeep and Manali, and I have to thank Kaniappan, because Kani, thank you. You're really doing yeoman service in Ruchi is not here. Thank you very much. All right, so now I will let you go.
Before ending this session, I would just like to share about our next talk, which is on 28th December, that is Thursday. There is slide seminar on surgical pathology thyroid lesions, which is going to be conducted by Dr. Salivary and Dr. Swapnil Rani, who are professors at Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai. So thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, all right. So we'll meet again on the 2nd, in which I will do the slide seminar. I'll send the same slides around. Most of you have got it on your Telegram app, but because it's been a long time, I'll send it around. Okay, thank you so much, all of you. All right,
Good night.
Good night.